Hi, my name is Leah Day, and welcome to this video for the Free Motion Quilting Project. Today we're going to work in a little 4-inch square and learn a new design. This is called Foundation Puzzle, and basically we're going to take a foundational design. It's basically wiggly lines that kind of randomly stitch them throughout your quilting space. This is a little bit like Zen breaks, if it's like anything else. And then we're going to work our way across that foundation, filling in each of these irregular spaces with a spiral. This is a closed spiral. You're going to work your way into the area, filling it up completely with the spiral as you go, and then travel stitch your way all the way back out. There is a good amount of travel stitching involved with this design, but the texture really can't be beat. So let's get on the machine and see how it works in free motion. So here I am in my square, and remember the reason why I really like this size and shape? It's because it's small enough, I can move it, I can reposition it, I can see what I'm working on, and it's also small enough where it's not going to take a million years to fill it up completely. It's going to be quite speedy to fill this space on a smaller scale. And remember, smaller scale quilting gives you more bang for your buck, because you're filling and you're getting more repetitions and more practice in a smaller space, so you're wasting less fabric. I know not everybody wants to quilt on a smaller scale. I totally understand that. But the simple fact is, working smaller, you're going to use less fabric. You're going to increase your skill level faster for a smaller amount of space. So consider that as kind of the benefits of stitching on a smaller scale. So now let's get started. This design starts with just simple wiggly lines. All I'm doing is just wiggling across my quilting space. And for this reason, this could be maybe considered an edge-to-edge design. You know, you can define these however you like. I want to call this foundational because really the entire texture of the design is going to be dependent upon this foundation, all these lines that I'm stitching. Now, you don't have to start your next line, you know, like the last 2 lines that I've started, I've kind of pivoted and branched off, and I've pivoted and branched off. You could travel stitch a bit. If you don't like the look of that, if you kind of want to space these out a little bit more, you can travel stitch along this edge and form another line, and that's just fine. Remember, this is your foundation, and the foundation is what sets the texture, so really anything goes. Totally doesn't matter. This is a free-form design, so it's entirely up to you how it's going to look. You know, you don't even have to use curvy lines if you wanted to. You could use straight lines. That is looking pretty good right there. I've pretty much broken up this space with a variety of spaces. You know, it's kind of broken up rather evenly. There's some big spaces in here, down here. Let's see if I can rotate this so you can see it. There's some big spaces like this one. There's some smaller spaces like this one. I think that's going to add to the visual interest of this design. It doesn't have to be perfect. They don't all have to be exactly the same size. So now for the second step. What we're going to do is basically stitch into the space, and we're doing an internal echo of all the lines. In this situation right here, I could travel stitch against that edge of the quilting space, but I don't want to do that. I want the entire space filled with this weird kind of irregular spiral shape. So you can see it's just an echo that runs all the way inside. And now that I'm all the way inside, I'm going to travel stitch right on top of that line of quilting, get my way all the way back out. Now the cool thing about this design, while it seems to have a pretty complex texture, it actually can go in just about any area of your quilt. I ended up using this in the background section of Express Your Love, a pretty complicated section. There was a lot of stuff that I had to watch out for, but it went in pretty easily because once you set that foundation, you really don't have to worry about fitting and filling the design into the space. So let's see this again. All I'm going to do is use those foundational lines as kind of the base that I echo inside of and fill that space up completely as I work smaller and smaller into my spiral. And you know, just sitting here stitching this, I'm thinking of all different really cool variations of this. You know, you could do straight lines rather than curvy lines. That would have a different effect. You could, I'm actually interested in trying this with circles. I wonder how that would work. That would be kind of neat. So, you know, understand this is kind of a springboard. You can really come up with a million different designs similar to this just by changing one or two elements within this design. And yes, this is a little time consuming. If you were filling a quilt and it was very, very large, you're going to be spending the bulk of your time echoing and travel stitching. Probably more time travel stitching because that's more time consuming. But the really nice thing about this design is it gives you a lot of practice on those two things, and those two things are really important for mastering free motion quilting. Oop, my thread's starting to act weird. Whenever you see something like that, like my thread was just kind of bunching up right there, that's a normal sign for that your sewing machine doesn't like that angle that you were stitching. Now, there's two things. Number one, I caught it before it made a knot on my quilt. Usually, if I see something like that, I'll just kind of stop, reposition, or figure out a different direction I can go in, and sometimes I can get away with it. Like, let's just check here. I'm going to stitch down enough so I can check the other side of the quilt, because I know that the top side looks okay, but let's check that other side. Of course, it's yellow fabric, so you can barely see the contrast, but I'm not seeing any sign that I had an issue right there. It's going to be right around this area right here. But that little sign that your thread was doing something weird right here around that bar where it connects to your needle and goes down, that is a really good sign that your machine doesn't like that direction. You need to rotate, you need to reposition and get started, because you are going to make a knot if you're not careful. Let me see if I can simulate that again, and maybe I can make it make a knot just to prove my point. Let's see. I know my machine is not wanting to stitch backwards today. I don't know why, but I've just accepted that that's what it doesn't want to do. And that was actually kind of to an angle, so let me see if I can... Of course, now that I'm actually trying to make it mess up, it probably won't mess up on me. But it's something that really is important to pay attention to. You've got to watch little things like that, because sometimes, you know, it'll give you a sign or it'll make a noise, and it'll do that before the mistake, before the thread breaks, before the knot happens. And if you catch it and stop, reposition, change things up a little bit, even just put your needle down and pull on your top thread a little bit. Sometimes machines are fiddly like that, and I can't really explain why, they just are. But you have to become very aware of what is going on at all times. So, I'm sorry I wasn't able to simulate that mistake again, but I think it was a pretty good lesson to show you exactly what was going on. And definitely rewind and you can actually see when my thread started messing up a little bit. And that's a common issue. Some machines really don't like to stitch in certain directions. You have to remain mindful of that. Now, can you free motion quilt with a machine that doesn't like a direction or to stitch in one way or stitch another way? Absolutely. I've quilted on machines that absolutely could not be stitched backwards on in any length, even an inch, and it would start breaking thread. You can figure out ways of always stopping before you have to go stitch backwards and pivot, stitch the sides, or stitch the front. You just have to become aware of these types of things. There's not a lot that we can do about it. Remember, you are using your machine in an entirely different way. It is not the way really the machine was designed to be used. So you have to kind of figure out how to balance it, how to make that thread stitch well, and more than anything else, figure out what works and stick with it. Once you figure out what thread and what needles that your machine likes, stick with it. Don't keep changing things, because that will drive you crazy. So that's it for this video. I hope that you've enjoyed learning Foundation Puzzle. Definitely check out the Free Motion Quilting Project for more beautiful free motion quilting designs to use in your Express Your Love quilt. My name is Leah Day. Definitely check out more videos at freemotionproject.com. Until next time, let's go quilt.